Good evening and welcome to the second InFocus learning series, Rotary Foundation and Humanitarian Service working together. I am Cheryl Berry, the Humanitarian Service Coordinator, and here this evening with me are Michael Hodge, Rotary Foundation Coordinator, and Janine Birtwistle, Humanitarian Service Deputy Coordinator. Each month, we take the designated RI theme and we invite an expert guest speaker along. We hope that this will give you ideas for projects, programs, and ways to attract potential new members. From that, we then develop other actions for you. We always record the sessions, and there is a dedicated playlist on YouTube that you can access, so you can use these sessions whenever you wish, with your club, with your community. And also, please do invite them to join these live sessions. In that way, we hope our audiences can get bigger and bigger. The theme for this month is the new Rotary year transitions. And we are absolutely delighted that our first guest speaker of this new series is Dave King, Rotary Magazine editor, and he's going to be talking about telling the Rotary story. We really are very, very pleased that he's able to do this for us. A lot of questions have already been sent in, and we also have the Q&A facility for you to ask questions during the talk. We'll do our very best to have as many answered as we can. And now I'd like to invite Janine, please, to formally introduce our speaker for this evening. Thank you, Janine.
Thanks very much, Cheryl, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. And I'm really delighted that we have got Dave King as our speaker with us this evening. Most of you will know of Dave or know him personally, an amazing Rotarian, but also somebody who has got a wealth of experience that really can help us to tell our Rotary story. And to be honest, many of us are not good about it. And if we could do more about it, we would have more impact of our service projects through our foundation grants, through our Rotary service, and people would be much more aware of what we're doing and excited about getting involved. So Dave is a journalist by profession. He's a passionate Rotarian. He really has got nuggets of wisdom for all of us to share. So Dave, over to you.
So thank you very much for inviting me to the first InFocus session of the new season. I'm delighted to be with you. By way of introduction, he's done most of it, to be fair. I'm Dave King. My Rotary Club is in Hampshire on the south coast. It's Gosport Rotary. And for the past 5 years, I've been the editor of your Rotary magazine. We do it both in print and in audio now. And I'm also responsible for a large chunk of the Rotary GB&I website. I am not a member of Rotary GB&I staff. I am, just like many of you, most of you, if not all of you, a volunteer. My background is in journalism, and I've been a newspaper editor for some 40 years, and I'm currently a lecturer in journalism at a London university. So it's interesting that the theme of this series of talks is the new Rotary year transitions. You know, we begin these Rotary years, new teams, fresh ideas. However, just like a New Year's fitness phase, which tends to fizzle out in weeks, I hope this session will provide you with some ideas and some momentum to take back to your clubs and districts. Now, when Janine asked me to deliver this session, she told me that she felt everyone could do much better in telling Rotary's story, sharing the service projects and talking about the power of Rotary Foundation in a way that it can enhance our projects by enabling them to become bigger, better and more sustainable. Importantly, the Rotary Foundation is about links between service projects and the foundation. It's about working with the community by involving them at the earliest stages of identifying projects and assessing needs. And as Janine said to me, and I agree wholeheartedly, she said, if we engage our community throughout the life of a project, it helps to make the entire family of Rotary more relevant, better understood, and a far more attractive proposition. So today is very much about explaining how to do it and just a little bit about why. So not the COVID lockdown, I've probably given somewhere between 100, 150 talks to Rotary clubs and districts across Great Britain and Ireland, mostly online. And it's amazing. Well, it is amazing what happens when clubs are desperate for speakers. But I've delivered numerous presentations around the world via wonders of Zoom. And the reason I'm wearing this shirt is I spoke at the Rotary International Virtual Convention in 2020. It should have been in Hawaii, but the best I got was a Hawaiian shirt. But for those 2 years, I've been banging on to Rotarians about the need to tell Rotary's story. I've talked about the fact that we have this moment of opportunity in a post-COVID age to raise our game, to promote what we do. Think about those 12 million volunteers who were engaged in COVID volunteering. Surely these are prospective Rotarians in our own organizations. So we need to be thinking about how do we bring them across? And in doing so, how do we tell Rotary's story? We need to move away from that dreadful 1970s dad's arm stereotype of Captain Mannering and the Rotary Club of Warmington-on-Sea with Sergeant Wilson as secretary and don't panic Corporal Jones as your sergeant at arms. And I hate to say this, but I have visited a few clubs which are just like that. Old men doing lunch, talking about bygone eras and not doing a lot. I gave one such talk to a Rotary club in London and received the most withering attack in a so-called vote of thanks. I'm 78, I'm here is 83. We've been in Rotary for more than 40 years and you're telling us we're not welcome in Rotary? Said my new best friend. We had a word before I left. I gave him a copy of my speech and asked him to point out where I said that he and Graham were not welcome. In fact, I made the point about the importance of leadership retention, particularly those who went off the radar in COVID, and how we do need to lean on the experience of those who have served Rotary so well. And I pointed to the part in my speech where I outlined how Rotary clubs need to have a fresh outlook to engage communities, to open the door so that others might participate in community projects. Because if clubs don't want to allow themselves to wither on the vine, then we need to be more community-based and more project-oriented. Now, in fairness to this particular club, which sits in the heart of a diverse community in London, they played a blinder during COVID. They worked with faith and community leaders to support the isolated and vulnerable. And their leading Rotarian, actually honoured by Her Majesty the Queen for his work during the pandemic. It was a multi-faith project led by Rotary, which galvanised the community and whose membership grew as a result. And it was because they told their story really, really well on social media. So that's what Rotary is all about, of action, not people of dinner and inaction. The point is, and this is a really important point to bear in mind, more than ever, right now, we have this great opportunity to tell a Rotary story. We all have a ready access to an audience. Now, when I first started out in journalism in the 1980s, these were the last days of the hot metal presses and those Bolshoi print unions of telex and fax machines, rotary dial telephones, and as journalists, we used shorthand notebooks and typewriters to write our stories. Back in the 1980s, in fact, before the millennium, journalists like me were the gatekeepers of news. As an editor, I controlled the news agenda because with very little competition, I could choose what stories I printed and those I chose to ignore. So if you, as a Rotary back in the 80s or before the millennium, wanted to promote an event, invariably you'd go to your local newspaper, tap up a friendly reporter and get something published. There were a few other options really right then, bar distributing circulars door to door in the high street or tying posters to the lamppost. By the way, that's me with the wrestler Giant Haystacks in one of my first interviews. It never went well. But all this changed, this concept of gatekeepers, all changed in the millennium with the digital revolution. Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web, and very soon Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, among a plethora of social media apps, became instantly available on your laptop, your tablet, and most importantly, your mobile phone. Suddenly, and this is the point I'm trying to make, journalists were no longer the gatekeepers of news. In fact, everyone on this call today has the ability and the capacity to be a gatekeeper of news. And that's a really important concept which you need to understand. You don't necessarily need newspapers to publicize what your club is all about, because you now control the news agenda. And in terms of Rotary, that means each and every one of you are part and parcel of the public image of your club. So rather than talking today about why we should be telling Rotary's story, I want to explain how, with a particular reference to foundation. But first, a couple of quick definitions, and apologies for stating the bleeding obvious. But when we talk about the term digital media, I am describing a broad spectrum of communication tools, including websites and social media, which we to access on our mobile phones, iPads and laptops. When we talk about the term social media, this is one aspect of digital media. And this term applies to apps or applications such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that veritable sweet shop of options. Now, to some on the call today, the mere mention of the word social media might leave you in a cold sweat and unsure of your ability to cope in the same way that I feel about DIY. However, turn the clock back 2 years ago to pre-pandemic. How many of you knew about Zoom? How did you first feel about using Zoom, and how do you feel about using it now? It's not that difficult, is it? Social media is exactly the same. Sure, there's a lot of choice out there, and it can become a time-consuming pursuit, but actually, it's quite easy to master. Now, today I'm going to talk about one social media app, Facebook. Why? Because of all the apps, it is the easiest to use by far. There's no limit on the number of characters or word count you can write in a post, and you can easily add images and videos. And when you come to think about the demographic of Rotary and the demographic of the audience we are trying to reach, potential Rotarians, then Facebook is the social media. Let's not delude ourselves. Our main target are not the 18 to 30s. It's not Generation X. While we shouldn't ignore generation, they are not our key focus. To be fair, most Rotary clubs do have Facebook accounts. How often Rotary clubs use them to post content is another matter entirely. Now, I'm a fairly relative newcomer to my club in Gospel. I joined them from my old club in London a year ago. And at the time, they had 300 people liking their Facebook page, which was good. They didn't put too much on it, but that was okay. So what I did from my own Facebook page is that I started to invite my friends, especially those in Rotary who live on the South Coast. And I invited them to the Gospel Rotary page. And very quickly, that audience grew. And currently we have 1,700 people liking that page. So, an action point from today, when you go back to your clubs next week and talk to them about this InFocus webinar, why not invite everyone in your Rotary Club who uses Facebook to invite at least 10 of their friends to like your club's page. What that means is that every time you post something on your club's Facebook page, those friends will be alerted. And if they read something they like and they think it's relevant, then they may share it with their friends, and their friends may share it, and so on. That's what we mean by it going viral. Unsurprisingly, the bottom line is that the bigger your audience, in other words, the more likes that your Rotary Club page has, the greater the impact. And if you're someone who doesn't use Facebook, then give it a go. It won't bite. Setting up a Facebook page, a personal page, is simple, and you post it for days out with the friends, to when you're seeing family or on holidays. Whereas with club pages, you have likes on your own face on that Facebook page where you'll be attracting friends. Now, I have about 3,000 friends, God knows where from, on my personal page, where I share my own stories about running and canoeing days out. And in fact, if you happen to be on my page today, I lost my keys at the weekend. I lost my car keys. I put them on the roof of my car. They fell off in the road. And one of those community groups posted those keys online, and I've been reunited with my car keys. It's one great aspect of Facebook and social media. It does bring community together, and it does alert them. This particular community, 15,000 people liking it. That's how big their reach is. And in terms of your Rotary Club, you need to be connecting with community groups, because they can certainly start spreading your message. I also have another Facebook page called Rotary Editor, which curates content from Rotary clubs from across Great Britain and Ireland, which I share among roughly 3,500 Rotarians worldwide. And if you want to like my page, please. Now, I'm not suggesting that personally you would expect to build up such an audience, but Facebook, despite people's anxieties over privacy, is a safe environment, and it provides a perfect outlook on the world. My wife uses it to keep in touch with her family and what's happening in Gosport. My 84-year-old mother and my father use Facebook for genealogy. Now, I'm mindful here that I'm tackling this from the perspective of a Rotary Club and not coming at it solely from the Rotary Foundation, but your work with the foundation projects will lie at the heart of what your club does. So the strategy is the same whatever the story is, because the task is to get engagement. From a Rotary Club's point of view, you should be using your Facebook page as a shop window to your club, while at the same time signposting your web page, putting links in there where people can find out more details about your club, how to join, what your meetings are, and general background. So what should you be posting on Facebook? How often should you be posting on that club page? And ultimately, why am I banging on about social media? In terms of content, you should always be thinking about your audience. Put yourself in the shoes, particularly if someone outside of Rotary. What would they be interested in? What would they like to know? What would they need to know? Pictures are key. Pictures light up your post. So if you're doing anything with your club which is visual, use the camera on your phone, grab some images and post them on Facebook with words of explanation. By the way, when taking pictures, it's good manners and good practice to ask permission of those who you are taking pictures of. With children in particular, say, for example, Youth Speaks, Young Chef competition, make sure you've got permission from a school, a parent or guardian. But then when you're taking the pictures, when you're putting up that post on Facebook, think about how you want to project your club to your community. Think about the project you do. Think about the events that you organise. Think about the fun aspects of Rotary. It's always important to remember that we do this for fun. And think about maybe some of the speakers that you have attend your meetings. And if you are planning an event, Post details in advance. Have a plan of campaign. Make several Facebook posts in the lead up. And if you are looking for help in terms of people, items, then reach out to the community on Facebook. My own club, we've got a bank holiday vehicle rally on the 29th of August. And we've been posting some videos, we've been posting bits of blurb along the way. I created a nice little poster on Canva, which again is a subject for another time. It doesn't need a great deal of ability. There's very simple ways and means of creating really neat material for your social media. The posts don't have to be long, maybe a couple of sentences. Ensure your English is good. You can see I'm posting a few examples here on the slides. Perception is everything. And when explaining what is happening, approach your writing from the perspective, of that the audience knows nothing. So if you are describing a Rotary Foundation project, if you are describing a global grant, explain what Rotary Foundation is. Mention that it is Rotary's charity and explain succinctly what the project is about and what it's achieving. Acronyms should be forbidden. They simply put up barriers to your audience. And don't write in-house jokes which no one will understand. Give names in full and ensure there is good detail. The great thing about Facebook is that you can easily upload and post video. Video brings a live subject too. Images, they can be static. And I would say be very wary with your pictures of what I call firing squad lineups and extremely dull check presentations. Be creative, be original, be different. Now, video, you can easily create a 1 minute to 90-second video recorded on your phone, which showcases what your club is doing. You can see on the screen there, this is my Rotary editor page, and that's a little video that I shot at Ulster, at Rotary headquarters, which describes about the page. It's just an instruction video, very easily done, just 90 seconds long. So with foundation projects now, in particular, they lend themselves to great video. Say, for example, you're involved in a global grant project to build a school or assist with an irrigation project. It's not impossible, you know, to ask your Rotary contact overseas to film a short video on their mobile phone and to email it to you. And this can be at any stage of the project, from the planting the foundations and clearance works to images of smiling children and teachers opening or celebrating the opening of a new classroom or receiving refurbished cycles. At a local level, at a club level, if your club is involved in a collection for the Ukraine in the high street, organising a litter pick in the park or planting bulbs for End Polio Now, create a video. Maybe get someone explaining at the start where you are and what is going on, and then pan the camera to see what is going on. Every club meeting, especially where you have a speaker, publicise in advance, especially if the speaker may appeal to those outside of Rotary and they may want to hear. Maybe it's an author, maybe it's a historian, maybe it's a local MP. By the way, my local MP in West London is Boris Johnson, so I'm not sure I'd invite him. But, you know, post a picture, post a short report on Facebook. But as an added trick and as an added thought, when that meeting's finished, when your speaker has finished, take that speaker to one side and then ask them in 90 seconds to talk to the camera. Hold the camera, your mobile phone up. Sorry, I look like Rod on the Emu there. Hold your camera and ask them in 90 seconds to talk to the camera and video them to explain who they are, about their work, why they're there, and how it went. Very easy, and it gives people a chance to get a flavour of your Rotary club. It doesn't have to be Steven Spielberg with amazing editing, stirring music, titles, dry ice and smoke. Just upload the raw material, the raw video from your phone to your Facebook page with some details in the content box. It really is quite simple. And you want to keep your Facebook page your club's Facebook page updated regularly, maybe once or twice a week. The content can be featuring your club. It can feature what's happening in district. It can have national content, for example, Volunteer Expo. Have a look at my Rotary editor page. And there are often interesting posts from other clubs, which you might want to take. There are some great graphics, examples you can see here on the screen, which you might want to share with your Facebook page. You want to make that Facebook page dynamic and interesting. You want to showcase your club to the local community, and you want to demonstrate that your club really is about people of action, a club that non-Rotarians might think about joining. This is really an opportunity for your club to have a presence in the community. This is why you are the gatekeeper of news. And that's the rub. Why bother with social media and Facebook? The reason? It's there to enhance your club's Rotary presence in the community. With 2.93 billion active users in the first quarter of 2022, Facebook is the most used online social network worldwide. So that's a huge audience out there. Nationally, and this is me wearing my Rotary GB&I hat, everything we do have a membership value. Rotary is hemorrhaging members in Great Britain and Ireland, along with Europe and North America, while Rotary is seeing huge growth on the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. So we all need to think about the membership value of everything that we do in terms of public image. Next time you organize a Ukraine collection, think whether you can set up a stand with leaflets, which explains what Rotary is all about. When you organize a youth activity or community project, think about how you can piggyback membership. Social media gives people outside of Rotary a flavor of the world's biggest humanitarian organization. You know, we can be quite complex in what we do since we do so much. So your social media page, in tandem with your web page, is a showcase. And that's why growing your audience is key. Now, I can hear you shouting from the rafters, some great ideas there, Dave, but you know what? I don't have the time. While each club will have one or two people focused on public image should be the focus for everyone. We can all play a part in our clubs of promoting public image. As I mentioned earlier, invite 10 friends today to like your Rotary Club's page and see those numbers grow. Make a point of visiting that Rotary Club page at least once a week and sharing interesting stories to your page. Once again, it's an opportunity to reach out to a new audience. And so long as this is organized and coordinated and done in an agreed fashion, why not encourage other members of the club to upload posts too? Content really is king. Make it interesting, make it engaging, and always, always phrase it in a way which would appeal to an external audience. And that leads me specifically to the Rotary Foundation, Rotary's charity. I tend to spend one day a month at Rotary headquarters to Alston near Stratford-upon-Avon. And I kid you not, I can always guarantee that once or twice a day, they will get a call from someone who they're getting in touch with someone who can fix their Rotary watches, not Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. So if the concept and purpose of Rotary is difficult to conceptualize to outsiders, what about the Rotary Foundation? What is it all about? Because the Rotary Foundation has a story to tell. It is the go-to charity of choice with a global network of volunteers, a group of technical cadres who monitor global grant projects, and we are a charity with no administration costs, unlike many of the bigger charities who spend huge percentages of their income on salaries and building costs. The Rotary Foundation spends all of its money on projects which are changing lives across the world. It's impressive and important messaging, and this is a story we should be telling. Now, we've all heard about the notion of the elevator pitch. It's a commercial sales concept where you imagine being stuck in a lift with a potential customer or client, and you've got the length of that ride, about 30 seconds, to get their attention and gain their interest. That conversation should be interesting. It should be memorable, and it also needs to explain what makes you or your organization, product or idea unique. So I wonder, what would be your elevator pitch for Rotary or the foundation? Think about it. You know, you meet someone you haven't seen for a while. Hi, Dave. How are you? Where are you off to? And then I explain, I'm off to a Rotary Club meeting. Oh, Rotary. I've heard about them. Aren't they doing lunch? What's Rotary all about? And suddenly you have your entrance, you have your elevator pitch. What on earth are you going to say? Well, there are a few strategies here to think about. A few years back, I was a member of Toastmasters International, which Rotary International has a partnership with. Toastmasters isn't about funny men in red jackets with posh voices being the master of ceremonies at a fancy junket. Toastmasters is an organization which teaches communication skills, particularly public speaking. And as a shy 21-year-old, as you saw earlier with giant haystacks, it was making of me. Toastmasters provides you with a toolkit of public speaking skills to help those butterflies fly in formation and make you feel more confident speaking in public. And one of the skills they practice regularly, and this is going back to the elevator pitch, by the way, is something called table topics. This is you are given a random topic, you have to stand up and speak on that subject for a minute. And it's just, if you listen to the Radio 4 game show in it with no repetition, deviation or hesitation, it's just like that. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, and as I say, it goes back to the elevator pitch, and you're faced with that long lost friend who's asking you what Rotary is all about, and you're thinking, what do I say? One of the tricks of the Masters Icebreaker is to gather your thoughts and think about the punchline. So when someone else asks you, what is Rotary all about? Think of a punchline. What one point can you make about Rotary which will linger in the air afterwards? It's a bit like a comedian writing a joke. Comedians write their punchlines first and then work backwards. So in the case here with the elevator pitch or with the Toastmasters Icebreaker, once you've got a punchline, then think about how you're going to lead into it. So you start by identifying the objective pitch. It's clear to give the person an interesting summary about Rotary, but what is the punchline? What one story can you use to back it up? So if I was asked about Rotary or the Rotary Foundation, my punchline would be that in the 12 years I've been a Rotarian, it's opened up my eyes and opened up the world to me. So that would be my punchline. But as an illustration of that, I would pick out a trip to India a couple of years ago of the polio vaccination clinics, describing how 110 million children are vaccinated in India during their annual intensive campaign. I might also briefly describe the squalor and smell of the slums that I visited. And that is really how you structure that elevator pitch. It shouldn't be longer than 30 seconds, otherwise you risk losing that person's interest or monopolizing the conversation. Hopefully that opening gambit will pique their interest. The same principle I would apply to describing the work of the Rotary Foundation. I'm conscious of getting nudged about and running out of time here, so I will finish fairly briefly here. So in truth, this elevator pitch in terms of selling Rotary Foundation is really trying to gain something interesting or eventful about what you're trying to tell about Rotary. So it shouldn't be like one of those Ronnie Corbett monologues. Be precise and succinct. So when you think about Rotary Foundation, what did you achieve with that global grant? What result? That should be the top line. And you should be looking at that in terms of your story. Tell the story, don't hide this. Earlier this year, my colleagues at Rotary Down Under, the regional magazine for Australia, New Zealand and the South Pacific, devoted an entire issue to the Rotary Foundation. And we're planning to do something likewise this February for the foundation. But in doing that, there are a font of ideas about the Rotary Foundation. The front cover says about the foundation, as a charitable of Rotary, the Rotary Foundation taps into a global network of Rotarians who invest their time, money and expertise into priorities that align with our 7 areas of focus. Rotary Foundation grants empower Rotarians to approach problems such as disease, poverty, illiteracy, malnutrition, sustainable solutions that leave a lasting impact. And so what I'm, I suppose, trying to explain today is that you have this opportunity through the magazine, through social media, through your club's websites, and using mainstream media to tell Rotary's story, to tell the world what Rotary is all about. This, to be fair, is just a flavour of public image, but please don't be put off. Give it a try and talk about it within the club to make it work. It's not difficult and it's not time consuming. As you might expect to hear from the Rotary magazine, I firmly believe that public image lies at the heart of everything we do as Rotarians. Without good public image, with properly promoting and marketing ourselves, then I believe we can start to drive membership. Because without membership, as Rotarians, we cannot pursue the important areas of work that we do. I mentioned the Hawaiian conference a couple of years ago, where there I discussed the need for joined up thinking with our approach to Rotary by putting public image at the heart of that work. It's why now more than ever, we need to be standing from the rooftops telling Rotary's story. And it's why your club and your district needs to make sure that its public image is strong, focused and in touch with other aspects of Rotary structure, international, fundraising, membership, and foundation in particular. I'd like to finish with a quote from the Rotary International Convention, which pitches on that specific point, and it goes like this. As Rotarians, you can have the most creative membership ideas, the most imaginative fundraising initiatives, and the most dynamic community projects. But if you're not telling Rotary's story properly, if your digital posts are filled with those mind-numbing Rotary acronyms, if your messages are about as engaging as a squeaky violin recital from your favourite niece, and if you're not reaching the right audience, then what you're doing in the name of Rotary has about as much value as a cream cake at a Slimming World convention. I'm mindful I've taken up a lot of your time this evening. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I know there's a lot of questions which we're trying to whittle through before 8 o'clock. Any questions which we aren't able to reach, please contact me on the email address there. I'll very happily get back to you. But that is all from me.
Thank you very much, Dave. That's really impressive. Lots of things to think about there, and get us all thinking about what we can do. And we have got a lot of questions that have come in beforehand. And if I can just remind everybody who's been listening that if they want to raise a question themselves now, they can just click on the Q&A button and put it in there, and we'll see if we can get to those as well. A lot of the questions that we received weren't actually relevant to tonight, so I've had to put those to one side because we had so many. But if we could just, the first one is from Charles Cheney from Aylesbury Hundreds Rotary Club, and he says, as a past publicity director of a major company, I find it difficult to understand why we cannot get good national press. I've seen nothing to follow up the announcement of a possible polio find in the UK a few days back. Only the World Health Organization was mentioned in the reports. What are your thoughts on that, Dave?
Yes, thanks for that, Michael. Charles, it's good to hear from you. I hope all's going well in Aylesbury. It's an interesting point. The next magazine, we're going to be focusing on the outbreak of, well, the polio find in the sewage in London. And it was interesting in looking at the media from that last month, there was not a mention of it. And that is really disappointing. And in a sense, when we come to the End Polio Days in October, Rotary works very hard, both in Evanston internationally, and they work really hard at Ulster as well to push out the communications there. But we don't recognition. Bill and Melinda Gates do, World Health Organization, we don't, and that is a struggle. What I would say to you, Charles, is that national publicity is really important. I think, you know, if Rotary was to spend a massive budget on TV advertising and newspaper advertising in the nationals, what would be the point? That would be wasting money. We should be far more focused at our district and local. We should be reaching out to our communities. I always regard, you know, with national publicity, it's nice. It's really good for Rotary, Rotary's brand, but really, and this is where the heart of the presentation is tonight, the heart has to be with what we do at a local level, because we're not going to necessarily attract new members from national publicity. What we will do is where there's publicity at the local level, seeing what we are doing, whether it is out in the streets collecting for Ukraine, whether it's involved in projects at schools or rubbish or that's where I think we need to put our focus. So I agree, it is a shame we don't get national coverage, but I don't lose sleep over it. I'm more concerned about us addressing publicity at a local and at a district level.
Thank you for that, Dave. The next question I'd like to do is, how do you get the media to publish your story?
Well, so that's a good question, of course. It's about a relationship with the media. The point about local media today is, while I was saying to you earlier that you are the gatekeeper of the news, you shouldn't ignore your local media. But local media isn't what it was before. It's not just your local newspaper. There are now community groups, there are community radio stations. So what it is all about is making contacts with these organizations. Now, I can speak from knowledge in local newspapers is that they are short of staff. They really are. And yet they have newspapers and websites which are hungry for news. So if you can get to these people, if you can maybe invite them to speak at your club, or invite them to come and meet you at the club and find out what they need and what their style is, if you are able to send to them a decent press release, it has to be decent, not just another speaker, but, you know, choose your moment. Send to them a good press release, maybe a picture, even a video. They will snap. If it's written well, it will do well. But the first port of call would be to make contact with them, to get someone who you can liaise with, invite them to your club, give them a diary of events, and start moving on. And it needs to be like a subliminal seed. It grows steadily. Don't think you're going to get it in one big hit. Make sure you send them coverage on a regular basis.
Brilliant, David. And thank you for keeping that a short answer, because obviously we want to know your knowledge, but the shorter you can keep it, the more of the questions we can ask you. Paul Satie of Halstead asks, if we had to choose, should we choose to publish speakers at a business meeting or community activities, e.g. tree planting, and why?
Oh, hi, I hope all's well in Essex. First newspaper was the Essex Chronicle in Chelmsford, not far from Halstead. I would say do both. I mean, you know, speakers at speaker meeting, if you're speakers, I think you should use speakers as an opportunity to bring people from outside. At my club the other week, we had a really good speaker, a local historian, and she would really publicise her that well, but she would appeal to a wider audience. So I think speakers are really good, but also, you know, if you've got a community activity going on there, and again, I'm go back to the litter pick as a classic, then in advance post it, let people know where it's taking place, when it's taking place, and a contact of how to get involved. If you can bring along people to take part, that's going to help to promote your club. And once again, make sure you've got good signage at that event as well. So I'm going on both sides, club events and also your club meetings as well, bode well for good publicity.
Right, and the next one I've got sort of flagged up is, how is Rotary, this is a question from Penelope Mazumbury at Luton Summaries, how is Rotary keeping up with media trends in order to appeal to younger members?
Hi, Rosemary. Yeah, I'm good. Hope all's well as going Luton. I've done some really interesting stories there about the work she's been doing in hospice over there. In terms of, you know, in terms of younger people, that's a really interesting question. It's not a focus. We don't sort of say, must target younger people. I mean, Rotaract, and I've been talking to them, they really are ratcheting up their publicity and their campaign this year. They've got a new in James Thomas, and so they are really trying to target the sort of 18 to 30s and even the 30 somethings as well. I would say Donna Wallbank, the past Rotary GBNI president, once said to me that as a Rotary club, you should always be looking to go 1K back on your average age. Trying to go any further than that, you're not going to get much success. And I think Donna was right. So when you think about the age of our clubs, my club happens to be 69. So really, you know, we need to be looking at the sort of 60 somethings into the 50 somethings. Going younger would be difficult. We might strike lucky, but it's not going to happen. So I think we need to be sensible and rational and reasonable about how we pitch to it. And really, you know, there has to be something as an offer to any prospective member about what is it in there for them? Why should they come and join Rotary? So pitch accordingly, pitch appropriately.
Thank you. I think I'll make this the last one, and then I know Janine's got quite a few ones that have come in this evening. From Angela Robbins at Tameside. Who takes the photos for the magazine? You surely can't be everywhere, Dave.
Hi, I know Angela very well, and I hope you are well too, Angela, and all at Tameside. Actually, the photographs are mainly contributed by the writers, by the organisations, and we also use a lot of stock images. We have access to various libraries that we use. Rotary has a huge library, but for the magazine especially, we need to make sure that the images are sharp and on. So yeah, again, I would reach out if you've got a good story for Rotary magazine, send it in, but send it in with a good image.
Thank you for those, Dave. And now I'll ask Janine to follow on with the live questions that have come in this evening.
Thanks very much, Michael, and thanks, Dave, for everything so far. There's a theme from several of the questions, and it's really about clubs that are making an effort on social media and on traditional media, where they are getting a lot of coverage, they are getting a lot of likes, they're getting a lot of people appreciating what they're doing, but they're not then getting the uptake from it. So, you know, what could they be perhaps doing differently?
Thank you. I mean, that's a blind question, because ultimately you can have loads of followers, but if your messaging is not reaching out to the right way, then you're missing your target. You see, as I said a bit earlier, we need to obviously make sure Rotary is active, but then we need to create opportunities for people to engage with Rotary. How do they sample Rotary? You know, Mike's wife Debbie, if I can use her as an example, during COVID, Debbie set up a community club in Ware in Hertfordshire. They used social media to publicise that. So, and it proved hugely successful. So there was a call to arms that Debbie and the team had in terms of saying, we want to be able to help the vulnerable and the isolated. They use social media to publicise it, and people join the result. So what I'm saying is, and only the people who ask the questions will know, is what are you inviting people to? How are you inviting? What is there? You know, do you have like an information evening, a new members evening? Do you have an activity which people can come along to? Do you have a fun event which they might want to participate at? Example of my own club, we had a hog roast and a horse racing event at the weekend where we had loads of people come along, and we made it a very fun participatory event, and we flagged that up as well. So I'm sure people are doing the right things, but I'm saying then you need to have something which the future Rotarians can go along to and sample and feel part of Rotary. But don't give up. You've got those audiences is great, and you know, in some ways it's delivering a message to a wider audience, which is really important.
Thanks, Dave. One very simple question: some of the people in the audience have taken screenshots of some of your slides. Is it okay for them to use them in their social media posts?
Yeah, no, of course you can, and they're you know, and they're copyright free as well, so they're okay. Yeah, but if you want the presentation, if you want the slide, if you take screenshots, fine. If you want a copy of the presentation, then please email me. It's editor@rotarygbi.org. editor@rotarygbi.org.
Thanks, Dave. Norman is asking, would it not be the best thing to do to have a dedicated press office so that there was consistency, clarity, and coordination around the Rotary's message? You know, he's concerned that, you know, it's very easy for one simple slip by one Rotarian or to get picked up, and, you know, a lot of that good image is then thrown down the drain.
Yeah, I mean, we do. Rotary does have a communications team at Ulster. There's 3 of them, led by James Bolton, who heads it up, and their role is to make sure that there's a consistent communications message. What I'd say to Norman is that sometimes parents don't like being told what to do. Is the honest truth, and that to be and you know, each likes to do their own thing. I see it with district magazines. I see it with club newsletters. Now, in some ways, what we can do, and I guess this is what I do. I go to speak to a lot of clubs and sort of give them a sort of very specific pitch about how to communicate. And again, if anyone wants me to come and talk to their club, I'm very happy to do that. But that's the best way that we do it. I don't think we did too much wrong, to be fair. What I hope tonight maybe have sharpened for you is the thought of how to do it. You know, how to really communicate better, how to think about Rotary far sharper, and that is to think about examples. I think actually our messaging is quite good. We just need to get it out further. And
thanks for that. This question is from Eve Conway, and it's along a similar vein to the one that Michael asked earlier from Charles Shaney, but I think it's got a different slant. And you know, Rotarians often complain that we simply don't get enough of that media coverage, and you've talked about that to an extent, but what can we as individual Rotarians, clubs, districts, what can we do to take responsibility ourselves rather than expecting others to do so?
I always knew the most difficult question would be from next year's RI director. So to Eve, and I hope you're doing well. One thing I think clubs should do is have a media plan, a public image plan. Think about how you can build a public image plan over the next year. So when you've got an event, rather than just think about how to organize the event, think about how do I publicize that event and maybe enter a plan. Many clubs don't have a public image strategy. And the one thing I would perhaps suggest is maybe clubs think about that in terms of who is our audience, identify that, who are we trying to reach to, how can we reach them, and around those 2 questions there, start to build a plan and set some goals about how you might try and deliver that over the coming 12 months.
Thanks. One last question before we have to wind up, I think, on this side of things. Again, this is from Caroline at Otter Valley. You know, she really feels that around the COVID time, people really were much more willing to get involved and to help. So if that willingness is waning, how do we in Rotary actually try and capture it and reinvigorate and get them involved?
Caroline's exactly right, because there were, as I mentioned in the presentation, 12.1 million people who volunteered during COVID. So how do we get them to become part of Rotary? Now, the first thing we need to do is to think they were doing that for nothing. They were volunteering for nothing. Now, to join Rotary, it's a tenner a month and the rest. For a wider discussion, I think sometimes we need to think about how we do Rotary so that it's not so prohibitive in terms of cost with lunches or dinners. And there are ways around that. But then from the perspective of those volunteers, we need to be telling them, what Rotary is. But the important point is how Rotary is relevant to them, why it matters. Why they can be part of this organization, which provides so much opportunity. And when Look at the Rotary Foundation, look at the opportunities that are out there within this country, worldwide, something they could not have dreamt of being involved with COVID. So when we think messaging, we need to think about what our offer is. And in doing that, say to them, this is what Rotary does, and this is what Rotary can offer to you. This is how we can develop you, how we can build on your skills, and actually be part of the world's largest humanitarian organisation. You were going to cough, Janine, weren't you?
I was. I managed it before I had to turn my microphone back on. So thank you for that little pause. Absolutely. You know, we are the best humanitarian organisation there is. So we just need to get people to wrap their arms around us and be part of it. So thanks, Dave. Really, really some great nuggets, and not chicken nuggets. I'm vegetarian, for us this evening. And it actually leads into our next session, which will be on Wednesday, the 10th of August. And our speaker then will be Rotarian Lisa Hunter. Now, Lisa, you may be aware of, she was involved with an awful lot in her community during COVID, but she's going to be talking to us about membership and new club development, but from the aspect of actually telling and involving our communities in our Rotary service projects right from the outset, which is very much what Dave has been talking about. So really getting involved with our communities, being part of those communities and having them part of our Rotary service, how that can actually lead to attracting not necessarily members, but attracting more volunteers, attracting new members, etc. So that's Lisa Hunter on Wednesday, the 10th of August. Please, please join us then. And please post about it on your social media accounts, through your channels, through your networks, and let's build up the audiences for these InFocus sessions, because they really are of benefit, not just to the foundation teams or the humanitarian service teams, youth, community, international, or anything like that. They're actually of benefit to all of us in our Rotary service. So hope we'll see many more of you again on Wednesday, the 10th of August. Thanks very much, everyone.